Greetings, fellow listeners. You found the podcast that will lead you down the twisting and winding road of daily horror. Today's tale is one that hits closer to home for some, and will be hated by others. Here is Man vs. Captors, as part of 365 Horror Shorts. Love is something that is often misunderstood. Some view it as something between two people in a relationship. Others see it as caring about those closest to them. But sometimes, the real love is the one thing that makes us truly human. Without it, what are we? It's been several years since the disaster started, and I'm still in hiding, hoping that eventually the world will come to its end. The war against us and the machines. Now, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds a little familiar, and I wouldn't blame you for believing so. But the story is one far different from what you'd think. See, a few years ago, AI was reaching a point where it was getting smarter. Its intelligence growing at an exponential rate. It was reaching a point where they were giving it bodies and putting it into machines. Deadly machines. At the same time this was going on, the government was cracking down on immigration, trying to crack down and find people in the country illegally and get them back to where they came from. But after a certain point, they overstepped a bit and cracked down on people that didn't seem like they were from here, whether or not they were here legally. Some called it racism, others called it necessary. But as the immigration crackdown pressed on, the government got a hold of these AI machines and programmed them to find people based on their lineage and how far back the bloodline was to who came here legally. They said it was to make sure that people's parents and grandparents were here legally before they started their families. Others saw through their lies. They knew it was still based on racism, and they weren't fans of it. They started kicking people out of the country based on nationality, on accents, on skin tone. There were extended days of protests of people fighting back against the government, against these machines. But it was no use. The machines were winning. Then, the country was left with only white people. It was painful and disheartening to know that we were only here because of what we looked like. Because we were lucky to be born in the skin that we did. It was unfair to the others. Unfair to the people forcefully removed because they looked different. Though many were sad and torn apart, the select few that wanted this were celebrating. For a short time, that was. You see, nobody ever turned the AI robots off. Nobody told them to stop searching back ancestry and taking people whose generational ancestors were born in other countries. And they were beginning with Europeans, the settlers from long ago. I guess I should explain to those who might be in the dark about this. The specific country that all these white people so proudly inhabit, the land wasn't originally theirs. It never really belonged to them. It was stolen from under the feet of people who lived here and settled here several hundred years earlier. The AI had learned this information, and according to its programming, started removing people whose ancestors originated from Germany, England, Iceland, France, Netherlands, and so on. Anywhere and everywhere that their original ancestors who settled here all those centuries ago had come from. Tons of people weren't having it, turning guns and weapons against these machines, driving their vehicles into them, using explosives to blow them up. But the more that were destroyed, even more spawned in to fight against them even harder. It was hard to peek outside and see all those people dead. The land almost barren other than the small group that decided to keep going against the war against these machines. I wasn't the only person in hiding either. It seemed like that was the only way to keep from being spotted, from being taken. Stay unproblematic and you'll be fine, right? This episode was written and produced by DL Dare. All audio is from epidemicsounds.com. If you enjoyed this episode and want to read more 365 horror short stories, check out 365 Horror Shorts on Substack, or at 365horrorshorts.blogspot.com. This podcast is distributed by Acast, based on the daily horror short stories by DL Dare.